Correct. Okay. Perak Beis Halacha Hey. Okay. Ha'orez v'adochen. Orez is rice, dochen is millet, pragin, poppy seeds, sumsimin, sesame seeds, shishishlinei Rosh Hashanah, as long as they took root before Rosh Hashanah, misrasin l'sha'ovar, then you mice them as if they grew in the 6th year, even though the majority of their growth is in the 7th year. Since they took root in the 6th year, they're considered to be 6th year crop. And with Yerushalmi, you're allowed to cultivate them during Shemitah, because Shemitah doesn't apply to them since they already took root before Shemitah. Being allowed, if not, Yerushalmi Shevi'is not allowed to cultivate them, and of course they have the sanctity of Shemitah. And if it's another year as opposed to the Shemitah year, then the Maasros follow whatever the subsequent year is. In other words, it all depends on the year in which they took root in the ground. Okay, let's skip down to the Gemara. Okay. Again, I'm following the Kavanaki system in which he divides up the halachos depending on the topics. Okay, Amar Rabbi Ba. Rabbi Ba said, "B'tfuo b'peiros." You see in the Gemara itself, where the Gemara starts.
Must be a header.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you have b'peiros. How's your Gemara start? What? Amar. You have a header?
Fourth wide line. There is a header.
Yeah, what's your header? Ha'orez v'adochan, v'apragin, etc. Okay, after the header, I'm Rabbi Ba. Do you have that?
Peiros. Doesn't say I'm Rabbi.
Oh, here we go.
You don't have Rabbi Ba. Okay, cool. Okay, here I have Rabbi Ba, b'tvua u'v'peiros. You have u'v'peiros, right? Hochel b'hen achar shlish. They go after a growth of the third. Okay? B'orez v'chulei, in rice, etc., achar hashrosha. You follow when it takes root. Uv'yerek, and after by vegetables, b'shas yikotz, go at the time it gathers. Now this is a very important halacha, and this is a summary of it, and now we're going to discuss it. There are 3 types of dates which can determine what year of a produce is affiliated with. There's when it takes root, there's when it's harvested, and there's when it's a third grown. Now, by trees, we're also going to discuss there's a concept of chanota, but that's not discussed here, okay? Here we just say that there's a third, and that's by tfua and by peiros, by grain and by fruits. By seeds, it goes after when they take root. And seeds don't just mean, sunflower seeds, but poppy seeds and sesame seeds and rice is also a seed, and millet is a seed, okay? All those seeds go after taking root. Ubiyarek, by vegetables, it goes after when they're collected, okay? So do we have those 3 things down pat? By grain and fruit, it's a third. By seeds, it's when it takes root. And by vegetables, it's when it's collected, okay? And this will be a recurring theme. It won't comes up very, very often. How do we know that?
So they did all these before
Shemitah begins. Even if they're growing for months into Shemitah, they're not Shemitah fruit. And you can cultivate them and take care of them, and they're not, and they don't have the kedusha of Shemitah, right?
They have to ask.
Right. But it works on the other end too. Shemitah exiting into 7th year, exiting in the 8th year. So if they took root before Rosh Hashanah, so of course they're Shemitah fruit, right? So, how do we know that they went by grain and by fruit after a third of its growth? The Chsiv, as it says, Chag HaSukkos ta'ascha, ta'aseh l'cha, you should make the yontav of Sukkos, ba'as b'cha, when you gather mi garnacha, from your silo, umikvecha, and from your wine press. Now that means, this is amazing drasha, mi garnacha, that which is from your wine, your silo, but lo kol garnacha, not fully from your silo, meaning something which is partially developed, not fully developed, meaning something which has grown a third, which is the bare minimum it has to grow in order to be edible, and not even if it's not fully developed. Okay, do you get that drasha? Mi yikvecha, that which is from your wine press, below koyikvech, even though it's not fully from your wine press. So that's more the logical question. If that's the case, if it's even partially, even if it's grown less than a third, it's still mi garnacha, it's still mi yikvecha. Rabbi Zira says the drasha gets wilder. Because of it says, Aser ta'aser is kol tvuah sarecha. You should take meiser from all of the grain of your seed. Davar shu nitzmach v'nisra v'nitzmach hamatzmiach has to be a seed which, if replanted, will grow again. How mature is that? That's the third growth. Yatzapachos mishlish, if you take a seed which has not yet grown a third of its growth, and you attempt to replant it, she'eino nizra matzmiach, it's not going to grow a new plant. Okay? Miato asks Gemara, okay, fine, you know what? Shlish harishon l'shavar. Let's say the first of the growth follows the prior year. Ushlish hasheni, let's say the second third of the growth follows the subsequent year. Let's divide the fruits in thirds. Let's say the first third which grew in the 6th year is shishis. The second third which grew in the 7th year is shvi'is. Right? Why don't we say that? And each fruit will be a hybrid of, conglomerate entity of shishis and shvi'is.
So what do you do with the fruit? You cut them up. You cut up the fruit.
Yeah.
How can you cut it up? Which one? You can't even cut it up because the thirds are
right.
dispersed.
Oh.
Which third is going to be some...
Okay, obviously this is a havamina we have to shoot down. The question is how we shoot it down. Okay? Me'ato shlish harishon shravar shlish sheni l'haba Rabbi Yochanan nilma mi chag hasukkos. Here we learn out from Sukkos. Ma chag hasukkos l'haba. Chag hasukkos is of the 8th year. Let's say we're talking about chag hasukkos of the 8th year. Chag hasukkos, this is Parshas HaShavua. That happens to be. Sukkos happens on the 8th year, right? But yet in the second to last mitzvah of the Torah, it says that calls the Sukkot the 7th year. It said, what? What's the second to last mitzvah Torah? I think it's the second to last mitzvah. It might be 6:11. I think it's 6:12. Last mitzvah is to write a Sefer Torah. What's the second to last mitzvah? Hakel. And it says that it's the sukkah of the 7th year sukkahs. Right, but it says there Shemitah. And everybody gathers in Yerushalmi.
Okay.
It says there. Yeah. In after V, Vayitza in Vayelech, which is really in this week's parsha Chamishi. Vayitza Moshe suddenly more Mikate Sheva Shonim b'Moed Shnas Hashmita b'Chag HaSukkos b'Voka Yisrael b'Pnei Hashem Lokecha Mokom Hashir Sheyivchar etc. Hakel Esam. So Hakel is in the Sukkos of the 8th year. At the end of Shemitah year, it's called the 7th year, right? Because it's after the 7th year, right? It's the end. Right. So we're darshaning that. It's in the 8th year, but nonetheless, it's affiliated with the year before. So too these crops. Even though the majority of them is growing in the 7th year, you attribute them to the 6th year. That's a parallel to Sukkot in the pasuk where they're learning over here. Isn't that an amazing thing? What? It's obviously not pretty strict at all, is it? But that's what it says here. Okay? No more avelu hein lahaba, even though they're growing mostly in the 7th year, you affiliate them with the 6th year. No more aporas v'tochan kain. So ask the more if you're following a third, why don't you follow a third also by rice and by millet? Why there you go by taking root? It's hard to tell when it grows a third, because it matures at various different rates. The rice and the millets, the way it grows, it's hard to tell. So says the Gemara, so what? The rabbi says Ravuna Bar Chia, so let it be hard. Big deal. Torah's not easy. So you won't know how to meiser or what to do. We have a principle later on, which is that whenever you have a crop which comes from 2 years, of course, not to take the meiser from 1 year or another year, there's no rollover, right? So you have a crop which comes from both years. How do you take off meisers? So it says, you mix the whole thing together well. literally means you put it, you gather the whole solid together. V'nimtza mizaro meiser mizaro yarko miyarko al zaro, and you're going to be meiser from the seed on the vegetable and on the vegetable on the seed. Now that's lav dafko. It means you're going to be meiser. It's really mizera al zera miyarko. It means we say that they're going to be properly mixed, and whatever shovelful you take off is going to be a proper ratio to the rest of the mixture, and you'll be able to take off the meiser for the 2 years from whatever you pick up, or the meiser, as we're going to see later on, from the zera in your shovel on the zera in the pile, and the meiser from the yerek in your shovel on the yerek on your pile. So to here, let's say so big deal. So by rice in my millet, it's hard to determine. So what? So let it be hard. So don't determine. So when you have an issue, mix them together and give them the status of both in proportion. Okay? That's Gemara's kasha, and the Gemara doesn't really good answer it well. The Gemara is going to try a couple answers, but ultimately the Gemara is not going to have a good answer on this. Let's try the first answer. Rabbi Yisrael said, Kima Huna Bar Chama. Huna Bar Chama sustained the issue, in other words, he resolved the question. Rabbi Yisrael Amar Kima Huna Bar Shmuel. Then Huna Bar Shmuel resolved the question. Ksiv, it says, Aser ta Aser, take mitzvahs. As Klotvo Aserecha, all the crop of your seeds. Hayote Aser Shada Shada, which goes out to the field year by year. Meiser Echad at Meiser, B'shana Achas. You can only Meiser, that one Meiser per year, Viat Meiser Shnei Meisers B'shana Achas, not 2 Meisers per year. And again, if you go after a third by millet and by rice, so you're going to have 2 years mixed into each other because they don't get to a third at the same rate. Now we see here, Xeris HaKosav, Meiser Echad, not 2 Meisers. Says the Gemara, I don't buy that either. When they ask the kasha on that, Pulamitu Shnei Meisers B'shana Achas. Pulamitu, Egyptian legumes, which is the issue we're going to discuss later on, where you have 2 Meisers in 1 year. The Tanya, we learned that Nishkeferlach. What he do is Soiva is going to Sochi, you mix everything together. You need some Meiser Mizar Yakum Yarko Zaro, and your Meiser in proportion, everything you're supposed to do. So big deals from 2 years. As long as everything's proportional, what do we care? Okay? Again, the Gemara tries to give another answer. Elam Rabbi Zira rather wanted to answer. Ksiv, it says, Sheishanim Tizrasadech. It says 6 years you should plant your field Vasafta. Now we learn out. It says there Vasaftas to Asa Ubashvis Tishmetenon Tashta. It says in the 6 years you should gather, and the 7th you should leave it. But we dash in the juxtaposition when we say that means Sheishanim Tizrasadech Vasafta. It's Tvuasa Bashvis. Etc. In other words, you put the comma in a different place. And we say that you can gather in Shemitah as well. There are certain things which grow, which you can gather during Shemitah. The time we learned concerning this, Shisha is right, in a 7-year cycle you get 6 plantings, but Shisha has saved him in 6 gatherings. The low Shisha is right, not 6 plantings, but Shiva has saved him at 7 gatherings. Meaning what? Vam Rabbi Yonah said, B'shita leis anayachlin kaimia ela b'shiva. We can't go after, if we followed a third of the growth, we couldn't even get 6, right? Why couldn't we ever get 6? Because we'd have a problem. If you followed a third of its growth as opposed to when it takes root, how many crops did you get in 7 years? I'll give you hints. I read the answer. I read how many it is. How many crops do you get in 6 years? 7. Why do you get 7? Because both the crop going into Shemitah and the crop going out of Shemitah are mixed, right? Because each one of those crops has got a mixture of stuff which, respectively, grew a third before Shemitah and grew a third after Shemitah, right? Because every single crop of yours is going to follow a third. Every single crop you harvest is going to be a mixed crop. So in 6 years, you're not just going to get 6, you're going to get 7. That's right. Right. Okay? You're going to get 7. Elokini. How's it going to work out that you get 6? How's it going to work out you get exactly 6? Elokini, Shisha, only this way, Shisha's safe in 6 plantings and 6 gatherings. Well, well, not Elkini. This way, it has to be 6 gatherings and six plantings and 6 gatherings. V'lo shisha zarin v'chamisha seifin, and it can't be the other way around either, because what would be the other alternative would be to say that there are only 5. Or do we machmir and say, well, we're not going to take either of them, right? But that would leave you stuck also, right? Because then we said in the drasha, it's 6 gatherings and 6 plantings and 6 gatherings. So, and if you're in a situation where you either take from both or leave both, and it's not going to be 6, it's either going to be 7 or 5, right? So says the Gemara, must be, the Gemara doesn't say it explicitly, it must be rather that one of these I can't take. And which is that? The one which goes into Shemitah. That's why I have the drasha, V'asafta Bashvi'is, right? They should collect on Shemitah. And why can I take that one? Because I follow Hashlosha. I follow when it takes roots. That's why I can take that one, because it took root during the 6th year and not during the 7th year. And the next one, of course, I cannot take because it took root during the 7th year. Okay, so that's how I get 6 out of 6. Ask the Gemara, and the same kasha we had before. Well, let me just say, I'm not. Yeah, no, that's why I have 2. But I forgot what the question here is. So ask Gemara, Rei Pul Mitzvah Shu Shisha Zloim. Oh, right, okay. Yeah, this question. All right. It says where your drasha must be faulty. We want to shoot down your drasha. You know why? Because Egyptian legumes. We learn later on, Shu Shisha Zloim Chamisha Seifin. We're going to learn later on that they do get mixed in. And that's why, we already learned this before a couple of times already, that by Egyptian legumes, because of the rate of growth, they do cross over from year to year on the same crop. And there, we got a problem, because according to you, there's no such crop in the world in which we can do 6 plantings and 5 gatherings. Yet by Pula Mitzri there is. So what are you going to do with Pula Mitzri? The tiny where we learn, V'tzayvus Garno L'socho, where seeds get mixed together when it grows, so you have to mix everything together in one. V'nitza Mais Mizar Yarkom Yarko Zaro. And you have to, assume that you're going to do it proportionally. Because as it may, there's a case where you have 5 and 6 plantings and 5 gatherings, and there's no reconciliation of the psukim with that case at all. Okay? So the Gemara just leaves the sugya and never answers the question. We never have any satisfactory answer as to how we know definitively that by rice and millet we follow the time when it takes root and not the time when it brings the third. No, I don't know why they don't bother saying that. You would expect that, yeah. Easy out, yeah. I don't know. Yeah. How do we know that by vegetables you follow the time it's collected? The Tana Rabbi Yosef Glili, Rabbi Yosef Glili says, from your silo and from your wine press. Mager v'yekev sheim chaim b'mei hashona shavra. Goren v'yekev. They are sustained by the previous year's fruit, water. Whenever they're first planted and they will go through a rainy season, they'll continue to grow on the basis of that water. You can't harvest them in the middle of the year and then expect the new crop to grow. It doesn't work. They go by the previous year's waters, whatever water they receive when they start initially growing. So too that's true about any crop which is contingent on the water which comes immediately after it is planted. Velu, however, vegetables, since you can harvest them and irrigate the field and grow more. In other words, they're not necessarily cyclical based on when the rainy season was. You can always introduce to them more water and grow new ones. So at Mahalch ben Labot, they must not follow the same parameters. What parameters do they default to? They default to, instead of shlish, or instead of hashrasha, they default to when they are collected. Okay?
I just don't see what's in here that says irrigation. The Meishan Haba, to me, implies that it could be rainfall from, it could be, that itself would be gathering.
You're right. It doesn't say irrigation here. So how do you want to learn the Gemara?
I don't know. I mean, Mei Shana Bo.
Yeah.
Means the rainfall that's going to occur.
Yeah, but I see. The reason why I understood, the reason why I mentioned irrigation was that helped me to understand what the difference between that and the regular grains are. I might be wrong, but that's the way I understood the difference. In other words, that by fruit and by grain, then you can't grow 2 crops in a year. But here it says you can grow 2 crops in a year. So how you grow 2 crops a year in Israel? There's only one rainy season, right? So my assumption is that you grow 2 crops in a year because of the irrigation. Could be I'm wrong though. Am I making sense at least on my own terms?
Yeah, no, I understand exactly what you're saying.
Yes, I don't know if that's what the Gemara means. Okay, but that was my assumption again because I'm not sure otherwise how you get two crops in one year.
Well, the Gemara eventually talk about esrogim.
I don't know if they'll talk about during Shemitah, but you're right. Obviously, esrogim is a big manifestation of this. That's right. I don't know if it's going to talk about here in Shevi'is. No, it doesn't. Sukkah, but I don't know if it talks about here. You know, hey, Simon, they asked the Kasha Rei Pula Mitzri. It says more. I don't buy that. You know why? What about our old friends, the Egyptian legumes? Zorah if you plant it for seeds, then you're saying Misasha Shavar goes by the previous year. Zorah Yerek, if you plant it to be a vegetable, we know this is fact. If you plant it for seed, it goes by the previous year, by the time of Ashrosha. Zorah Yerek, or time of Heavy Shlish. Zorah you plant as a vegetable misasar, but goes after time it's collected. But if you're going to say it's going by how it absorbs the waters, v'kitzma biyodeh, is a pula mitri a magic plant? Was it a warlock? Zorah lezero u'chaimi me'ashona shavra, or does a pula mitri go through the thought process in its little brain? Oh, they planted me lezera. I'm going to go by the previous year's water. Yerushalmi is into sarcasm.
That exact same point on Pol HaMitzri and Klayim.
Did we have this one? I don't remember.
The point is, the difference was the distinction made with the intention. What the intention was when you grew it for seeds.
Oh yeah, that we did have, right. There's a difference between Mitzri and planted for seeds or planted. That's correct. That's fine.
The Gemara didn't add that.
Yeah, but here we're saying that what you're saying the definition is based on waters, though. So I was saying that doesn't hold water. Why? Because Zor Yerek Uchaimi Me'ashana Abba, if you plant as a vegetable, knows to take from next year's waters as well. In other words, how is it going to know the difference? And of course, the Gemara does not answer the question. Okay, let's go back to the Mishnah. Rabbi Shimon Shizuri Omer. Where we left off in the Mishnah. Rabbi Shimon Shizuri says, Pula Miti Shizar Lazera. Here it is. This same thing as you mentioned in Kilayim. Pula Mitzvah, which is planted lazera, which is planted as a seed, bitchila to begin with, kayetzibot. It follows, of course, like we learned by rights, it follows the principle of Ashrasha. Rabbi Shimon Omer, Rabbi Shimon says, Afunim al-Gablunim, thick or coarse peas have the same halacha as well as following roots. Rabbi Eliezer Omer, Afunim al-Gablunim shetarmu lifnei Rosh Hashanah. Not only do they have to take root, but they also have to get their pods. Without a pod, they're not considered to be affiliated with the 6th year. Let's go to the Gemara where we just were. Rabbi Abba Bar Zavda. Do you have a header there too?
No, it starts off with Ma'u Tarmilo, often Kankulin. Rabbi Boa Bar Zavda.
Okay, so he took out those 5 words. Ma'u Tarmilo. I wonder why he took them out. He has them later on. That I can tell you. I don't know why he doesn't have them here. I don't know. In any event.
Well, there is a head of Rav Shimon Shizuri on it.
Yeah. All right, be that as it may. Rabbi Abba Zavda. Do you have that? Do you have Rabbi Abba Zavda? Do you have him?
Yeah.
It's a few lines. It's a few words.
Okay. I'm Rabbi Bo, Rabbi Abba, Zal Shem Shem and Lakish. Halakha Shem Zuri, Halakha Shem Zuri. That Egyptian legumes planted for vegetable to be seeds, they are considered to follow Hashosha. Now I should point out that it seems that the seed, this is like snow peas. That if it's eaten as a vegetable, then you eat the pod. If it's planted for zera, then you use the peas. Okay? So it's very similar to what we call snow peas nowadays, or pea pods.
Strikes me as being unusual.
Yes.
I think it should have been
Yeah.
to establish the halal.
You know what? No, you're right. It's a good point. Really, we very rarely quote Rabbi Shimon Law to just establish halacha. Yeah. It's Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Lazar. But Yerushalmi, all bets are off. I don't know. The question is how often it appears in Yerushalmi. So if we pay attention from now on, maybe we'll see that. Maybe it is a rarity. I don't know. I'm Rabbi Yossi. By the way, once you say that, it's totally off at attachment, completely attachment. Nothing to do with what we're about to learn. But I've started noticing recently, in the Bavli mostly, that there are a lot of quotes by Rabbi Yochanan named Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. And I'm wondering how the heck did that happen? Rabbi Yochanan never saw Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Shimon Bar Yochai was long dead and buried before Rabbi Yochanan came on the scene. Yet their quotes very often name Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai in the Gemara. I know it was long, but he was dead and buried before Rabbi Yochanan. So I'm wondering how that happened. All right, next time you say to see that happen, I wonder. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was, but Rabbi Yochanan is not known for his mysticism. No, at least as far as I know, he's not. All right, be as it may. Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Shreivsi, Rabbi Shreivsai, the Tzruka. Rabbi Eliezer Paskin for Rabbi Shreivsai of Tzruka. I guess it's somebody's name. Called Rabbi Shimon Shazuri, Rabbi Shimon Shazuri as well. Okay, Sheish Midos Amachali B'Pulam Mitri. There's 6 parameters which Chazal said by Pulam Mitri. Now they're somewhat confusing unless you put let's like the Kavanaki does at the end. He summarizes them, but we'll go through them and then we'll summarize what they are at the end. Zara Lazera. If you planted it for the peas, not for the pods, right? Then Misasa L'Shavar. It goes by the time when it took root, right? That's called L'Shavar. And the vegetables, he points out the Kavanaki, the vegetables in it, the pods, are exempt from Meiser. Because they're bato, because you deprived them of their significance when you chose to plant it as a seed as opposed to as a produce. Satafa, right. Zarli Eric, vice versa, then you master it as a time of Lakita. And of course, the Zera is exempt from Meisers. Zarli Eric, let's say you want both the peas and the pods. Zarli Zera, you originally planted it for the peas. The Choshev of the Eric, and then you change your mind, want it for the pods. Meiser Mizaro al Yarko, Umiyarko al Zaro. You can meiser in that case from the zera on the yerek and from the yerek on the zera. You know what? Because in that case, since you want both, it all becomes like one min. It all becomes one thing. You can even be meiser from the zera on the yerek and the yerek on the zera. Now, it's talking about a case where both it became a third grown before Rosh Hashanah and you gathered before Rosh Hashanah. So the Hevi Shlish and the Ashrasha and the Lakita were in the same year. If the Ashrasha and Lakita were not in the same year, then of course you'd have a problem because you couldn't say that you both are affiliated the same year and have the same parameters. Okay? Says the Gemara, and that's what we're about to say. That's if you gather before Rosh Hashanah, so everything is affiliated with the same year. If you gathered after Rosh Hashanah, the Saro, the seeds, Misasa L'Shavar, they go out the previous year. V'Yarko, Misaser, whereas the vegetables follow, B'Shasa Kitasa Suro, they go after the time that you gathered. Ukshevi Shlish, that's also Ukshevi Shlish Rosh Hashanah, when it became a third grown before Rosh Hashanah. But it became more than a third grown after Rosh Hashanah. Then both the seed and the vegetable follow the following year, whatever the following year is of the 7-year cycle. Now, Zoro Lazero, you planted originally for seeds, which is somewhat of an aberration. And therefore, Chishav of Yerek, if you change your mind and make it a vegetable, boinly de machshava, they come to that which we thought. Meaning that now they have the status of vegetable. However, vice versa, as earlier, if you planted it as a vegetable, and then you change your mind and thought of it as a seed. It doesn't retrieve the status of a seed. Elohim Cain, unless Monamimeno, you curtail from it Sholosh Mubrios, 3 irrigations. Lifnei Rosh Hashanah. In other words, since the default assumption is that it is a vegetable, to make it a zera, not only do you have to intend to make it a zera, but you also have to deprive it of water, because water is given when you want it to grow into full-grown fruit, whereas it's taken away when you want it just to be a seed. This is also true only if it, of course, brought a third before Rosh Hashanah. But if it grew a third of its growth after Rosh Hashanah, even if you curtail from it 3 irrigations, nonetheless, it's considered to be a vegetable. Now, I guess my assumption is that by then it's too late. In other words, you can't change your mind as to what its status is after Rosh Hashanah. Okay? Says the Gemara, Vafilu, lo manu menu sholosh brios. Now, even though it says Afilu, which means even, that's not necessarily what we're talking about here. Rather, lo manu menu sholosh brios v'zor l'zera. What happens if you didn't deprive it of 3 waterings? But to begin with, you planted it for the purpose of seed. Vasa kulo katzitzin gmonim v'nei Rosh Hashanah. They all got their pods before Rosh Hashanah. Zaro misaser l'she'ovar. Then, in that case, the zera is independent, and it gets meiser as the previous year. V'yarko, but it's vegetables, which are significant to you clearly because you watered it. So the watering in and of itself gives the vegetable part significance. That follows shasikot, so that follows whatever year it is gathered. Miktsas also ktsatzin gemurin. What a part of the crop had pods before Shon and part of it did not. And this is the case where they said, he makes all the pods and all the pieces together very well, and then he takes shovelfuls and you assume they're proportionate, which of course you said is lavdafko, rather means that you're zoreh, you're meiser from your zera and your zera from your yerek on your yerek. Okay? Do you want to know the 6 meters outside? Is this, you dying curiosity, you know what they are?
Yes.
Okay. If you plant Luzera, then it goes after the previous year, and the vegetables are exempt altogether from Meiser. That's one. If you plant it as vegetable, then you go after the year in which it's gathered, and the Zera part is exempt from Meiser altogether. That's 2. If you plant for both Zera and Yerek, and it became both the third grown, and you harvested, you gathered before Rosh Hashanah, so then everybody agrees it's affiliated with the prior year. If it grew a third before Rosh Hashanah, and then was gathered after Rosh Hashanah, so the seeds follow the previous year, whereas the vegetables follow the subsequent year. If it became a third grown after Rosh Hashanah, then both the seeds and vegetables follow the subsequent year. That's 5. Finally, the 6th principle: if you planted it for seed and you didn't curtail from it 3 waterings, and it also got its pods before Rosh Hashanah, then for sure you have both seeds and vegetables in this pula mitzri, and you have to mix it very well before you take off meiser. Okay, those are 6 meters. Tani, we learned Rav Dimi min Chayfa. Rav Dimi from Chayfa said, "Va'afilu asar katzes." He argues what we said just now. says, I feel also cool and good to sing good morning with Yerushalmi, even if not all of them developed their pods of Rosh Hashanah. Zara Misasa L'Shavar, the Seraph was the previous year in which it grew a third. For Yaakov Misasa B'Shas Likito, so when the vegetables fall, the subsequent year in which it's gathered. Rabbi Asa said, Fu Shevi Shlish Chishon B'Machshev Zera. That's when it grew a third. You already intended to raise it as seed. But if you already started watering it and growing it as a vegetable, is it possible to say that you're going to do the vegetable, the seed part based on the previous year and the vegetable part based on the next year? How can you say that? So says the Gemara, V'teimar tzover t'garno l'tocho v'nimtza meiser mizara yarko miyarko zaro. This is really part and parcel of the question. In that case, can you say that you're going to mix it very well and meiser from the zera on the yerek and from the yerek on the zera? I forgot what's the problem with this.
Dave was just saying, I want to be a lucky one. So I go twice, and somebody else does.
Oh, obviously. Okay. Here it's exempt from, the zera is exempt altogether in this case. Why is the zera exempt altogether in this case? Because the original intent was to grow it as vegetable. Look, go back 3 lines. If the first third grew as vegetables, that's it, you can't change your mind. Because what determines whether it's going to be a zera or yerek? Well, your pattern of watering it during the time when it's growing the first third. If you don't water it, then it's seeds. If you do water it, it's vegetables. And once you reach the point of the third watering and didn't curtail it, you've reached the point of no return. And therefore it can never have the status as royim, it can only have the status in that case of yerek. Okay? Says more further. Tanya, we learned. Zara l'zara lifnei Rosh Hashanah shel Shnei Shevi'is. You planted as seed before Rosh Hashanah of Shemitah, and Shemitah came in. Bein Zara ben Yarko muter. Since you planted it as seed, so even the yerek, which normally follows gathering, is not an issue here, right? And therefore it's all considered to be of the 6th year. Because your intent was to have the whole plant to be a zera. You might use some of the pods as vegetables, but they're tafel to the primary part of the plant, and therefore it's 6th year stuff. What happens if you planted it as a vegetable for Rosh Hashanah Shemitah, and then Nichnas Shemitah, then Biga Shevi'is, and Shemitah comes in? Of course, in that case, Ben Yarko, Ben Zara, Ben Yarko, so everything is forbidden. Because then you follow the gathering is during Shemitah. You intended both. Rosh Hashanah Shevi'is, and you planted before Rosh Hashanah Shemitah, the Nichnas Shevi'is and Shemitah came in. Pshita, the Zara mutter, it's obvious that the Zera's mutter. Yaakov, what about the vegetables? Tani Reb Chia, also Reb Chia said the vegetables are also. Tani Rav Chalafta ben Shmuel mutter, it's permissible. Madam mutter, he says it's mutter, says it's Vartorals, it's mutter. Why? Because you curtailed the water. Otherwise it couldn't have been Zera. So therefore it's really Zera, it's not vegetables. Obviously it's mutter. Because it grew third during the prior year. He who says it's forbidden, no, why? Not me, the right, so. Because people don't know. They think it's a regular vegetable. They don't understand that it's they don't understand that it's really a zera. They see you eating the pods, they think you're a mechalo shmita, right? So,
presumably, if you're not watering, I can't imagine that.
it may,
Watch and see.
yeah. It might not taste so good. It's not going to be. The way that look. Right. Nonetheless, Rabbi Simon Bar Zvida boy kumi Rabbi Asa. Rabbi Simon Bar Zvida asked Rabbi Asa, if that's the case, you shouldn't be allowed to eat it, feed it to your animal, because we know that human food cannot be eaten by animals during Shemitah. It's forbidden. So if that's the case, you shouldn't be allowed to feed it to your animal. You know, people do feed it to their animal. Marley, so he said, you're right. And lo yitain lo livnov, lo l'shluchi, you can't give it to your son, to your agent. Lo yilok it only, you're not allowed to gather it regularly, like as you would a regular crop, because everybody assumes it's Shemitah crop, even though it's not really. Rabbi Yossi Barbun said, what's the way in which you're allowed to gather the pea pods? If you uproot the branch when you gather them. Mutter is permissible. Why? Because that's not the normal way of gathering. People are not going to think you're gathering it as a regular crop. However, even Kohen Manamar says it's also to gather the vegetables normally. Look, if you're gathering them as seeds, and there was some vegetables there attached, mutter, it's permissible. Says the Gemara, getting back to the issue of Marasayin, that which Marasayin is also is Kadochad Barnash. It's like a certain individual who harvested his Pula Mitzri, which during Shemitah, it had grown a third before Shemitah, all time Eser Mitzrin Delubi. He took a load of 10 Libyan donkeys of Meiser Rabbi Yochanan Rabbi Yirmiyah, Meiser from his crop to Rabbi Yirmiyah. Amalei, Rabbi Yirmiyah said, Tov, sit back in your place. Lo Savi came, don't do that. But Lo Silko, never collect Elatzurka Lissa enough for a small pot. Because if you collect a large amount, people are going to, there's going to be Marasayin issues. People are going to think you collected it as vegetables, and that's prohibited. Okay? So you plant the Luzera, so everything is also. Because by definition, in that case, it's Fal Shemitah. Now you're not allowed to do this, by the way, because you're not allowed to plant during Shemitah. But you plant it as a vegetable during Shemitah, and it went out into the 8th year. It's permissible. Why? Because it's affiliated with the 8th year. You planted for both. Before the Shana of the 8th year, and the 8th year came in, Zara also v'yarko mutter. So then the Zera is also, because that follows the time when it's the third grown, and the Yerek, the vegetable part, is mutter. Rabbi Elazar Omer. Elazar says, these coarse peas when they get their pods. Mao tarmalu, what's the pods? Abdun kankolin. Those are the pods in Aramaic. Omer Abitani, we learned our Rishim Gamliel. Lo nechluku Beisham B'tzil. Now we didn't have Beisham B'tzil. Rishim Gamliel says, Zol Stuvisin. Although Rabbi Shimon Gamliel probably didn't know Yiddish. He said, you should know. He said, my brother has this joke. I think I told it over, but I don't think I ever told your presence. He says that the Chassidim who say, they'd say in the Bracha Achrona. So Shiloh went to say, Al Michya at the end, Al Michya Val Kakola. So some rabbi, I forgot who, I think a Chashman one, who said that when you come down, when you come, since the Safek, you say, Baruch Atah Hashem, Al Oretz Val Michya Val Kakola Zok Mir Nisht. So my brother said, well, can imagine that when Moshe Rabbeinu came down from our Sinai to the Jewish people, he said, guys, when you say a bracha achrona, say Al Michim Al Kakol Zok Mir Nish. So they asked him, Rebbe, what does it mean? So he said, I don't know, just say it anyway. Okay. So that's a word further. Shimon said, Lo nechluku Beishamai and Beisilel ala Gomor l'shavar. Beit Shammai will never argue. Until now, we just now. Is this whole Gemara not in your thing?
No.
Are you up to a Mishnah now?
Yeah, I'm up to the Mishnah.
What's immediately after the Mishnah?
It says B'Tsalem has threesome.
That's immediately after the Mishnah?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. There's a whole passage here which you don't have in your Gemaras.
Okay, that's right.
Okay? So I'll just read you what it says. Tanya Rav Shimon Gamliel lo nechlu Beisham Beisil al Gomor l'shavar.
This is before the Mishnah?
Yeah. Beisham Beisil never argued on that which is completed. In other words, that it's got its pods, that it's affiliated with the previous year. But that which is still grass, it doesn't have pods yet. The Shua Losti Lovo, that it's the following years. Amal nechlu, what are they arguing? Al HaTarmil, on the pod itself. What is the pod considered to be? So, Beis Shammai says that it goes per the previous years, by previous year, by Beis Hillel Omrim Lo Asid Lovo. Beis Hillel says that the pod is on the subsequent year, meaning that the pod is not a determining factor, according to Beis Hillel, by these Snopies, unlike our Mishnah, which said it is. Beis Hillel says it's not a determining factor. Rather, the sole and exclusive determining factor is is when it's collected. So when Gomer, according to Beis Hillel, means not just Gomer that has a tarmil, but Gomer means completely finished. So he holds you follow not the when it gets the pot, but when it is fully complete. Okay, next Mishnah, halacha vav. B'tzalim, this problem with these bladders, they're so long. B'tzalim asrisim. Yeah, we been at it for a long time. We only did one blot. B'tzalim asrisim. You have onions which are castrated, meaning they don't grow seeds. And now I was not under the impression that onions ever have seeds. My impression is that onions grow from bulbs.
That's right.
Yeah, so I don't know what it means exactly, but it means seedless onions.
No.
I don't know. It doesn't sound. I don't know. Okay. Upula mitri and the Egyptian legume, our old pal. Shemona me ma'im shlosh mil Rosh Hashanah. If you curtailed water from them 30 days for Rosh Hashanah, then they're seeds. Even the onion is considered then to be a seed. Misasim mishavar, and it's remaises by the previous year, which are mishvis, and it's permitted during Shemitah. V'imlav, and if not, if you gave it water, then that made a vegetable. Asur mishvis, they are prohibited during Shemitah, misasim shana ba, and the mitzvah follows the following year. V'shel bao. Now, if this is, if it's not a field which is, the first mission is talking about an irrigated field. However, a field which grows from rainwater, so then you have to make sure that it gets no water for somehow, I don't know, make sure, I guess it's an act of God, but it doesn't get water for 2 periods, which is, we don't know exactly what a period is, but I don't know, whatever it is. Divrei Meir Chachamim Shalosh Chachamim said it has to go 3 periods without water.
That would become farmers' fund.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's the way it says on the bottom of the Kavanok is that when it's grain, it gets only rainwater. But when it's when it's legumes and such like, then they do have to irrigate it a little bit. So that field that goes by 3 periods of the irrigation, or 2 periods of irrigation, depending on where the order Meir and Chachamim, and they knew exactly what this is referring to, even though we don't. Okay, Ma'al B'tzayim Asrisin. What are the castrated onions? Elaine Butzlaya Kufraya. These are the village onions, the hick onions. They don't have any seeds, which means that other onions do have seeds. Don't ask me. Right, which means there are onions which do have seeds. Okay. Mayim shloshim yom. What do we know? Once you curtailed water from them 30 days for Rosh Hashanah, it's no longer considered to be an irrigated field. It's considered to be like a biofield, and it's considered to be affiliated with the Zera, and it's affiliated with the previous year. Rabbi Yonah has a very long question. Can it become Zera retroactively, or Mikano Lahaba? Only subsequent to the 30 days. What's the difference? Who cares? So it says more acute distinction. You get during those 3 days before Rosh Hashanah, you gathered some, right? If you're going to say that it was a zera retroactively, even within the 30 days, then they're all subject to the same maasros. However, in Temer Rikanalavi, you're going to say it only becomes a zera after it's been out there and drying in the sun for 30 days without being watered. Ain't no maasros. Then, ironically enough, the stuff which is out there now in the field is zera, and that's considered to be for the previous year. But the stuff which you plucked, right? Even though you plucked it, I really have to design the case a little bit better. The case is like this. We're not talking about during Shemitah. We're talking about regular year, right? And because we're talking about Meiser Mizal Zeh. So it's regular year from 5th to 6th, or 6th to 7th, or 2nd to 3rd, right? So if you're going to say it becomes there retroactively, so even stuff plucked during the 30 days can be used as Meiser on the stuff which was plucked after the 30 days. But if you say it's not going, if you're going to say it's does becomes there retroactively, so the stuff plucked before the 30 days were up, that's considered foul lakita, and really should go after next year. But it's the stuff which is plucked after 30 days, that's zera, and that works after the previous year. Unless you say, if you dry it for 30 days retroactively, the whole thing becomes zera, and therefore all of it is affiliated with the previous year. Okay?
You don't put it in the rishus, it's not left in the rishus.
The thing is, the stuff which is collected before 30 days, he points out, it's exempt from Mises altogether. Because it was never Zera nor Yerek, it was plucked too early. It was plucked too early. I don't know why that should be. That's what he said, it was plucked too early, so it wasn't fully formed as a Yerek. Yet a Zera it wasn't either, because in order to be a Zera, it has to have grown 30 days without water. So it was plucked in limbo, and since it was plucked in limbo, it has neither status. That's essentially what he's saying. Okay? It doesn't have status neither of a Zera nor of a Yerek. Alright. New Mishnah. Are they waiting outside, the women? Are they downstairs? Sterile onions? Nobody out there? Okay. Yeah. Adluin. Allah Chazayin. Adluin Shekima Lazera. Now, pumpkins, which you kept around for Zera. They didn't keep them around from Halloween in the old days. You kept them around for Zera, right? For pumpkin seeds. If they got hard before Rosh Hashanah, and Nifsul Me'ochodim, they can no longer be used for people, only for jack-o'-lanterns. It's almost October, right? So you're allowed to leave them around during Shemitah because they're no longer edible. If not, also you're not allowed to leave them around during Shemitah. You might have intended them to be seeds. Too bad. It's my sign. Somehow they have some other component of the plant which is always edible, and that's also during Shemitah regardless. Okay, lamali huksha. If you lo hukshu, once they're no longer edible, what do you care if they're hard or not? Says Mark. Oh, I switched to Gemara. Yeah, sorry. Sorry. He did it here again. Sorry. Lamali huksha. Why do you have to be hard? If you lo hukshu, even they didn't harden, same thing. Right? You have that? You have it? This is I feel tsunami. Even though once they become inedible, who cares if they're tough or not? It says more, no, you missed the point. It's the same thing. Becoming hard and tough is the same thing like becoming inedible. And that's to become like zeronim, which are not eaten, and therefore they follow the previous year. Ketzur bodek. How do you check if it's hard or not? Rabbi Yisrochina Amar Okto. You pierce a hole in it. If the hole then becomes healed again, also then it's still considered to be edible. If not, if it can't become, the hole doesn't scab over, so then it's considered to be hard and it's mutter. Rabbi Yoina Butzra Amar Karmulin, which is some inedible grass, which makes some pumpkin-like vegetable. Harain carrot, it's still a vegetable. Rabbi Yossi Boy, they asked the Shaila, Karmuli Maushu, Chavi B'maiser, Chavi B'maiser, Tani Rakapar, no Karmuli P'turim B'na Maiser. They're Chavi B'shmita, but they're exempt from Maiser because they are basically inedible. In other words, they're not grown to be eaten. And anything which grows hefker and is not to primarily eaten, it doesn't have Maisers. Harder to take Maichel also gluing. That's only once if they haven't yet grown their pumpkin-like crop. I mean, most of the bloom once they grow their pumpkin-like crop, Kiera came there like vegetables in the Chayv and Meizer. Hoge Rabbi Yesi Bi'ilya, Rabbi Yesi Paskin in Elin, actually. Oh, not in Elin, sorry. He said, Be'ilin ale kulkasya, by those leaves of the kulkasya plant. Shosli must be mind. They used to use them as cups for water. You can't do that Shemitah. Because deer eat these plants. And since they eat these plants, they're machal behema. And anything which is machal behema has kedusha Shevi'is during Shemitah. And as kedusha shvius, you can't use it for any other purpose except for eating. You can't use it for salve. You can't use it for ointment. You certainly can't use it as a water cup.
Even you yourself don't use it.
That's right. As long as animals use it. That's right. Okay, let's go back to the Mishnah. Umar bitzibah for lovan. Now, even at Shemitah itself, you can water stuff which is growing in fine, literally white dirt, but it means fine dirt, where the water gets absorbed quickly. Divrei Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov says forbidden. You can make the rice patties muddy during Shemitah. Rabbi Shimon Omer Aval ein mekaskim, but you cannot prune them because that's the issur of Zmira of Zomer during Shemitah. Okay, let's go to the Gemara. Asad Rabbi Shimon Krabanin. You have the Gemara where we are? For he doesn't have the header. He always takes out the headers. I don't know why. Maybe because he goes back to the Mishnah. Ask you the Rabbi Shimon Karabanin. It's the first thing he has.
Okay, so he skips a few words.
Yeah. Ask you the Rabbi Shimon Karabanin or Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov Kishitase. Rabbi Shimon is going like Rabbanan. Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov is following his line of reasoning. The Tanina Talmud, which you learned in Moed Cotton. It's about Chol Moed. Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov Omer Moshe Samayim Elon Meilon. Elazar ben Yaakov said you can draw the water during Chol Moed from tree to tree. Ubilvach lo yashkes kol sarakula. What? It's for you. As long as you don't water the entire field. Zchaim shelo shasu lifnei hamoed liyashkem hamoed. The seeds that you didn't plant water before Yom Tov, you shouldn't water them on Yom Tov. The Chacham say both of these activities are permitted, like Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Mona Amar Lastam. Rabbi Mona learned this whole issue without a machlokas or a mishka. Rabbi Yam Shem Shmuel said, "Bistam chokim." They're talking about there is a machlokas, but not. He doesn't use stam the same way. The way we just use the word stam, it means that there are no tanoim who explicitly mention our Mishnah. Now, Bistam means the question of what kind of field we're talking about is subject to machlokas. That's what we're about to talk about. But man, okay, what are we talking about? Imru vachim, the trees are very far apart. Everybody agrees you can't water the entire field. Imru tzufin, if they're very close together, everybody agrees you can water the entire field. About the following case, they're planted 10 for a Beisah, which we said is the standard share of saplings. We mentioned that already earlier, right? Right, Elazar ben Yaakov, Elazar ben Yaakov says they're like far apart, and therefore you have to water each tree individually. Rabbanan Avnei Tzuvin says they're like close together, and therefore you can water them all at once. Says the Gemara, Rabbanan Omrin, B'Ruvachin Asul Hashkos. If Rabbanan can see where they're far apart, you're not allowed to water them. You have to together. You have to water each one individually. Is that true? Ma'ula Hamshich. Can you make little canals from one to the other? Let's learn out Rabbanan hold this matter for that which Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov says. Kamar Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov Amar. Elazar ben Yaakov said, when they're spread apart, you're not allowed to water them, but you're allowed to make little canals from tree to tree. Can Rabbanan Amrin, so to the rabbis say, Mutar lahamshich, you're allowed to draw water from tree to tree, but also lashkos, even though you're not allowed to water the entire field. Lo kein sovrin meimar. Be that as it may, don't we see here clearly divrei kol b'mruvachin, where the trees are very far apart? Divrei kol aser. You're not allowed. Everybody agrees you can't water the entire field. You have to water each tree individually. Vein offer love on lav kimruvachinu. This case of white dirt, which we had in our Mishnah, is like where there's expansive. I guess because it's a lot of work to water it because the water gets absorbed in the ground. So I guess that's the issue. You know what it says Gemara? It's the difference between Shemitah and Chol Moed. What's the difference between Shemitah and Chol Moed? Shvi'is is really mutter to do work. Right, you're not doing work. It doesn't have any inherent kedusha. In order to keep the trees alive, they allow you to do something, whether it's a lot of work or little work. It doesn't matter. There's an element of Isser Malacha that's Kedushas Yomtiv. First of all, they only allowed it to if your trees are going to die if you don't do it on Yomtiv. And they also only remind it if it's not a tremendous tircha. But if it's a big tircha such as the white dirt where it's very hard to water, or the field is very expansive, it's forbidden as well. That's one answer. Some said, Shemitah, since it's a whole year, so they have to matter you in more cases during Shemitah. So, because what are you going to do? Wait till after Shemitah to water, but then all your trees will be dead. Moira, they should kotzer because it's short. Also, so they were more stringent because wait 7 days. Says Moira, that answer is no good. Because if that was the case, also in Shiva Yomim Achronim, the last 7 days of the year of Shemitah, which we're in now, right? The last 7 days of the year. According to this logic, wouldn't it make sense that should be like Yotter should be also to water all the last 7 days. We never found such a thing. So therefore it must be that the first answer is not correct. The second answer is not correct. It was nothing to do with the length, but rather with the tircha. Marbitzim b'am for love and b'shvius. Ashkach time we found a bride says explicitly Marbitzim b'am for love and b'shvius that there's taka dichotomy between Shemitah and Chol HaMoed. That at Shemitah you're allowed to do the white dirt, even though it's a lot of tircha, because at Shemitah didn't ban tircha, avalo b'moed, but even Rabbi Shimon agrees that in Chol HaMoed you can't do the white dirt. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, Oser, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, Asers, regardless of whether it's Shemitah or anything else. I would go further, but you have to leave, right?